Maybe it's just that it wasn't started. That's why I couldn't get into it.
Hello, everybody. Just going to remind you to kind of mute your mics. If you don't, we will. Just kind of helps make sure that we get a good recording and good presentation for everybody who's joining. Okay. Welcome, everybody. My name is Gerald Howland. I'm the CTO here at MyTech Partners, and this is our Power Users Group. Today, we're going to be talking about SharePoint editing and how to kind of work through that kind of stuff as we're expanding our knowledge of the Microsoft 365 environment. So first of all, welcome again. Want to make sure that you mute your mic. That just kind of helps us make sure that we get a good session. Hey, during this process, if you have questions that come up, make sure you use the raise hand feature inside of Teams, or add them into the chat. We will be monitoring that kind of stuff and calling them out at the appropriate times as we go forward with this. At that time, we might ask you to unmute so you can ask that question directly if you'd like, or you can just make sure that the question is appropriately documented in the chat, and we'll do that. And then also make sure that one of the things that we really want to make these meetings valuable to everybody. So please fill out the polls that we send at the end of the sessions. We have some follow-up emails that go out right after the sessions or about a day after the session. And with that process, we usually ask, what kind of content do you feel would be beneficial? Fill that out because that helps us give us guidance as to where to take these next sessions as we move forward. So before we go too far, we like to kind of preface who is MyTech. A lot of people that see these programs think that we're a training company when we really aren't. We're all about actually IT services to small and medium-sized businesses. So we really do focus on those small to medium-sized businesses, helping them remove their IT challenges so that they can focus on their customers and do a better job of doing that. And we find that clients that actually follow our recommendations and structures actually can receive 4 times more value and productivity from their IT investments. One of the other things that we want to cover is who is a power user. Hopefully all of you attending here are what we consider power users. Power user, though, we'd like to clarify, is not an administrator, right? So this is not somebody that you have to have all these special admin rights and all this additional training to do things. This is all about the person who inside your organization is willing to drive adoption, understand the pros and cons of taking actions that they do, really understands the needs of the organization and helps them in making their IT decisions. So you become more of the person who's driving the movement inside of your organization than the person actually doing the movement. So just kind of a big clarifier there to make sure that we aren't going to get up into the sysadmin type level of things. What we're going to be showing you is exactly how to do these kinds of actions. So today's agenda, we're going to do a brief recap of some of the stuff that we've talked about in previous sessions, because we've kind of been building this picture as we go. We're going to talk about modification of SharePoint pages, give you some information about sections and web parts, and then give you a demo. So we're actually going to go through and build some web pages and show you how information can be modified, those kinds of actions. So recap of previous sessions. In previous sessions, we've talked about how we store files in Microsoft Teams and SharePoint. We also have learned that the architecture behind Microsoft Teams and SharePoint, where Microsoft Teams ultimately is a conglomeration of multiple tool sets. One of those primary tool sets being SharePoint. It really becomes a key feature, and you're going to see where all that starts coming together here today. We also know that for file storage, OneDrive and SharePoint really do become the Teams file storage locations. So how that information really gets stored. And we know that M365 groups are integral to the security of everything. So when you create an M365 group, or what used to be called an O365 group, we know that the creation of that group creates a team, creates a planner, creates all that kind of stuff, and it becomes all of those security structures all built together. In our last session, we talked about building SharePoint sites and the different kinds of sites where you can either have the more functionality integrated modes, which are dealing with Teams and the M365 groups, or we can have the legacy communication style pages, which are independently managed for structures and permissions. SharePoint admin roles, since we're going to be digging deeper into SharePoint today, just kind of going to review this. There are multiple levels of SharePoint roles. One of those being global admins. So global admins have unlimited access to your 365 environment. You have the SharePoint admins. SharePoint admins are people that are delegated access to only SharePoint. So they have unlimited access to anything inside of SharePoint. So kind of that very high level role in there. We also have 365 group owners, and then we have standard users. So those Microsoft 365 group owners are the ones that are going to be your team owners. They can add and remove users as necessary. And the standard users are everybody else in your organization, right? They're the members of those groups. So when we start talking about site permissions inside SharePoint, we have site admins. So when we have a SharePoint site that we develop, we can add admin rights to that by default. These are going to be people much like those delegated admins for the SharePoint admins. They're going to be site admins of every site. They have a little bit of more control over everything. They can see everything by default. Even if they are denied access, they can still see it. They also have controls over recycle bin, site collections. So they can get to some of the background engine type stuff that isn't necessarily visible to normal people. Site owners have unlimited access to that. Many times they're tied to Microsoft 365 groups, but they also have the ability to add and remove permissions, do some of that kind of stuff. Site members are people that they're just members of the site. They have edit permissions. That's kind of the big thing. They cannot edit permissions, but they have the ability to edit documents that are stored inside SharePoint. Can also be tied to a Microsoft 365 group. If we tie that to a Microsoft 365 group, then they're M365, or then they're just the members of that group. And then we have visitors, and visitors by default are your view only, read only kind of people. So they can gain access to the site to only read. There's actually some other restrictions around automation, even doesn't work for them, some of that kind of stuff. So that's a review of where we've been at. I always like to kind of show this just to kind of give an example. There's a lot of scopes of what Microsoft 365 is, a lot of different licensing options. But one of the things that I want to point out is we're going to be talking about SharePoint Online today. And as you can see, SharePoint Online is across the board, right? Everybody has access to SharePoint Online. It's one of the fundamental engines of the licensing. So basically, there are some like email only SKUs out there, but for the most part, if you're in any of the primary Microsoft 365 products, you're going to see this licensing available to you. So who can modify SharePoint pages, right? Let's just start off with this. Rights, it basically, if you're a member of a site, you have rights to modify it. So in a team site, we're talking about anybody who's a member. It's globally applied. It's universal across the system. You can do some restriction on a page by page basis, but you can't do. It's not really intended to be secured in the way that some of the more standalone type sites are. By this way, you are actually restricting access versus giving access on a team site. In a standalone site, member or above permissions by default have edit rights, but you can do that at a site level. So you can, at a site level, you can say, you know what, members actually don't have the ability to modify pages. And you can also go page by page and add rights associated with those pages. So if you wanted to, in a section, you could actually have a page that is tied to HR, and then you can give the HR team rights to edit that page, but nobody from accounting can. So you can kind of break up some of those rights and some of those structures as you see fit. So when we're talking about modifying SharePoint pages, though, everybody immediately goes, I need to be a graphic designer or an expert in web design. Everybody knows that they have to be a guru in HTML in order to design web pages, right? Wrong. One of the big things that's unique about SharePoint and especially SharePoint Online is everything is kind of what we call WYSIWYG, right? What you see is what you get. It's all online, easy development, all kind of upfront and easy to design. It's all componentized, so it's all just being able to plug that in. Microsoft really is focused on making this development really tied to the typical end user. They don't want to make sure that there isn't any special developer or all these experts that are involved in order to do these kinds of things. It does help though to have a keen eye as to what you're looking at though. So how does SharePoint page structure work? So inside of a SharePoint site, you have a collection of pages. A page is basically what stores the content. It is the web page you go to. It has the content, it has the revision history, it has the publication. It's kind of the master document that stores everything else. Inside of that page, you have sections, and sections are basically allow formatting and some of the kind of the building blocks of what you're going to do. You can then add web parts. Web parts are the components that you add to the network to the sections to actually start building out that page and adding basically content to it. And then one of the final things that's kind of part of a page is comments. So this is a feature that you can turn on or off, but depending on the page, you might actually want to allow that on to allow people to make comments or have discussions about that page on that page. So sections. Sections are a way of producing a look and feel of how that page is formatted. So each section is stackable, so we can have multiple sections in a document, so we can change the look and feel as we go through that page. It also defines like columns, so we can say, hey, we want 1 column, 2 column, split column formatting. It also helps us define a lot of our color selection palettes. So the page will define our color selections. This will help us, kind of tune that and kind of give us some breaking styles, so to actually be able to break up sections of the page. And then, of course, we can stack those sections up into layers. Web parts. Best way to put this is content blocks. These are little objects that we can put into that. And it's not just about text content or pictures. It's all sorts of things. It can be combining content from other areas. So we can combine content from Planner, from YouTube, from Twitter, from all sorts of different areas, not just strictly Microsoft based, but even other areas. There's over 50 of them right now, and there's constantly additionals being put in. Microsoft is, I think they just added like 3 more the other day that just all of a sudden got it added in. So we'll show you how to kind of go through those and what they can do. There are also options of creating your own custom code. So you can also, if you do have in-house code developers, or if you work with a business entity that writes your primary business applications, stuff like that, we can actually take those code blocks and many times insert those into SharePoint, and those then become available. So you can build reporting engines, you can do a lot of that kind of stuff all out of the same page. I've seen people build it for doing forms, data entry type pages, all based upon this that automatically tie right into their ERP or their business platforms. Some quick tips for success to make sure that as we go through this, how to make sure that you get the most out of this. The first one, make sure that you're using a modern browser, not trying to use anything that's old or older IE, Internet Explorer, anything like that, but making sure you're using the new Microsoft Edge. I want to prompt the new version of it. So we'll show you what that one looks like here in a minute, but make sure that you're using the new Edge. The older Edge does actually have some problems on SharePoint Online. Google Chrome is a good one, so is Mozilla Firefox. Groups that we do have problems with are things like Internet Explorer, older versions of the browser, stuff like that can be problems. You also want to make sure that if you have any add-ons that do script blocking or ad blocking, pop-up blocking, those kinds of things, you want to turn those off. We have seen where they can cause problems and interfere with the actions on the site. And then one of the things I like to make a recommendation of, especially in this scenario, is actually building a playground. Build some websites, build a section of the website that you can just play in, start with a team, something like that. See what these web parts do. Just start building a page and just adding the web part. Oh, that's not what I like. Yes, this is what I like. This is what I want to do. Best way to really learn what all these web parts are and how to set them up and what they can do is actually to just try it. So Good part is for the most part, I don't know of a way to really screw anything up, especially if you're playing inside of a playground. So that's enough presentation. Let's actually get into the demo, huh? Let me move over to my other browser here. Okay, so here I've got one of our Teams pages, and as you're all aware of, inside Microsoft Teams, you'll see that we have our Teams, we have our chats, our files, all that kind of stuff. You can actually either through Files, and then going to the Open in SharePoint, you'll be able to get to a similar link to this. Or in this scenario, I've actually even built a link directly to the homepage of the SharePoint site related to this team. In this case, we're going to work on the marketing team pages, so we can kind of see what we're looking at inside of here. By default, Microsoft automatically builds a set of pages for you. These page templates kind of change depending upon what the structure is that you're doing. So in this case, this is a default team template page look, kind of thing. If I go over to a communication site, this is what a default communication page looks like. Obviously, it looks like a communication, right? Versus, this is much more orientated around kind of that productivity side of things. When we look at this, so this page here, we kind of want to figure out, hey, maybe we want to put some content in here for the marketing team so that they can always keep up to date with what they're doing. As you can see here, there's an edit on this page. So anybody who is a member of this page or of this website has this little edit button up here, and they can actually click on this edit. Now, there are ways to build multiple pages where you can go up here to new, and then you can say, I want a new page. And when I say a new page, it will build a new page, obviously. We also do have news posts, and these news posts are basically little pieces of content that we can build that we can then integrate into our page. So I'm just going to start by modifying this home page here, and I'm going to go up here and I'm going to say edit. And when you go into edit mode, you're going to see that we actually get kind of a little bit of a different look. Our menus change, our interface changes here, and it provides us with our sections. We can see here that we have a 2-column section. If I click on this area right here, I can say edit section, and it opens up my breakout of the properties of this section. I can scroll down in here, and you can see down here at the bottom of the page, we have our comments area. This is where we can turn those comments on and off that I was talking about. If we turn that on, this will modify our page to be able to add those comments. We also have these little pluses that show up in various areas. So right here at the end of this section, I have a plus. If I scroll up to the top, you'll see I have a plus up here too. This allows me to add a section above or below this section. And then if I hover inside of these areas, you'll see that I get the pluses that show up in between all of these little objects. So this object right here, when I hover above that highlights, is a web part. So this web part is, each of these are different components that we're adding together to make a web page. So I'm just going to build a new section here, and I'm going to say I want a 1-column section. I want this to fit the whole width of the interface. And then I'm going to build a web part. Now, depending upon what you're trying to do with the web parts, obviously there's lots of them here. I'm just going to expand this out and kind of give you a bigger picture of what we're talking about. We've got everything, and they're kind of broken down into collaboration type functions, planning, business intelligence. We can add all of these. Some of these require additional services, some of them don't. So obviously Google Analytics isn't going to do anything if I don't have Google Analytics features built in, or have an account with Google Analytics. We have things like countdown clocks. In fact, let's actually just insert one of these. So let's build a countdown timer here. Maybe marketing is going to launch their new product, right? So let's just type in what's on my mind, lunch, not launch. And we're going to actually add that. So we can go here to this edit web part. When I do that, we get the edit page up here. and that's going to go live on the 14th at 8 o'clock. And when I do this, you can see that it automatically changes my format right here. We can do a call to action here if we want to, and a call to action is creating a button that is going to do an action. So we can say, hey, you know, when this countdown timer gets to 0, take me to the new website, and it will actually let me go there. I can also add background images. And the background image information is actually all built in here. So we've got everything from stock images that are all built into the SharePoint system. So we can go find our stock images that we're maybe looking for. We can also do searches across the web. This utilizes the Bing search engine and finds openly licensed images and graphics. We can pull it from our OneDrive. Maybe we have some photos stored inside of our system. Maybe it's stored someplace else in the site. I can upload it from my computer, or I can even, provide a URL link if I know that it's hosted out on a web page or something like that. I'm just going to pick a stock image here, and I'm going to say fireworks. Look at that. I'm just going to pick that one right there. And by doing that, you can see I get a background. I can say how much I want that to be. I can change the opacity of the document. I can even say if this was a very bright image, then I could actually change my color as to what the text is. By doing all of that, I have just now added a countdown clock. Pretty simple overall. It's sitting there. It's all working. I can then go on to add another content item if I would like to. So inside of here, I could maybe add an image or a text area. When I'm all done, I can say republish because this page has already been published once. And when I do this, you can see by default, everybody that lands on this page now is going to see it this way. This also works even inside Teams. So inside Teams, I'm going to go to posts, and then I'm going to go back to my SharePoint page to refresh it. And when I do this, you can see I'm seeing now the same imagery. I did all of that without a single bit of code, all just clicking and dragging things. So kind of a cool way of doing it. So let's go back here. I'm going to edit this page again, and I'm just going to remove this object here. You'll notice that when I remove this object, I also have this undo button up here. Oops, I removed the wrong object, right? If I want to undo what I did, I can actually say undo. Just like you could in a Word document, but this is all based upon your website. This is also one of the other things that can happen is I delete something, I make a bunch of changes, I don't like what I did, how do I get it back? Instead of having to go back through the undos, I can also discard changes. If I say discard changes, this is going to say, hey, do you want to revert back to the previous version? I'm going to say yes, and this is going to take me right back to the page that before I started editing. So now I can go into this page, I can go in and I can modify what I'm looking at. I can say delete that, I don't want that content in there anymore. I can republish this, and it's going to publish it just the way it was when I added that information. Let's go through a couple other of these web parts and see what else we can add in here that might be kind of neat. One of my favorites is a web part called Hero. And what Hero is a content formatting document. So this is going to be a web part where we can build various content topics. So I can either go to web pages and pull up topics that I might be pulling off of this, or I can pull up stock images and build custom imagery that I might want, and then build unique URLs. So if I just say I'm going to insert this image here, and then I can go into this and okay, come on here, do what I want you to do. I select an image. Inside of here, I can say where I want this link to go to, and I can even give it a title. So if I want to, right, I can add this, I can see what this looks like. I can say I want to show the title or not. I can set different kinds of options. So I want to have a call to action link. So this learn more, I can have that available, or I can turn it off. You can kind of do the flexibility of what you want to do with these. You can then go into each of these and we can actually modify each of these as to where we want to go. Maybe this one wants to go to our issues and discussion topics page. I can say open, I want that to be my link. I don't like that background image, so let's pick a different one. Let's say, so we'll just insert this thumbs up icon here. And you can see that all this is being done dynamically here as we go through. Now these are all smaller icons or smaller sections of this page. But one of the things that we can do is if we go back here and we actually look at what this hero looks like, we can go in and edit the format of this. So right now we're in tile mode and we can actually change it. So right now we've got 5 tiles, we can say 4 tiles, we can go 3 tiles, so we can provide different levels of information benefit. Maybe we only want a single tile at a time. We can save those kinds of options whenever we set this up. But we also have layers. As we select layers, you can see that there's now a vertical layout instead of a horizontal one. And I can say how many layers I want. Maybe I only want 2. Provides only 2 of them. If I say 4 layers, you can see that I've got an extra space here, an extra space here, and we can kind of do this. It automatically kind of builds our formatting for us, does the different layouts that we would want. We can go all the way up to 5 layers. We can see how far down we can go for all of those. Maybe I want to go to 3 layers. Inside of here, I have all sorts of options that I can actually modify each of these objects. So we can edit the details. There's also focal point settings. So these are around our background images. Maybe I want this background image up here to be in slightly different look. So I can actually go in and I can actually drag the focal, and you can see that I can move this B around. This actually becomes maybe I want this to be a bigger picture. I can actually zoom this and I can say, you know what, I want the focal to be there. The reason why we do some of these settings is this will change no matter how we reformat this page. So if I'm viewing this on a cell phone, it's going to always make sure that this image, even though it might be cut down considerably, always has the center of focus visible to it. So it's automatically going to scale and draw these settings based upon the device you're using, whether that be a laptop, an iPad, a tablet of any kind, a phone, you name it, all of this stuff is all accessible to you. So we can go in here now and we can say republish. And as soon as we republish this information, you can see that we get the formatting behind it. Maybe now I want to really call out these sections as kind of being a different area than the rest of this. What I can do here is I can go back to this page and I can say I want to edit this section, and you can see that I can do background changes. So one of this is I'm going to call this out so that this is a unique area compared to this content down here. And when I do this, I'm going to republish this to make this live. You'll be able to see that I kind of have different color hues that happen as we go down this process. Obviously very, very powerful for what you can do. That's just an easy content one. I'm actually going to get rid of this object here. Delete that section, get a new one here. And with this one, we're going to go through some of the dynamic content. So some of the things that we can do that are actually dynamically generated are going to be things like highlighted content. So highlighted content are going to show us our most recent documents. If I go into the properties of this, you can see that, hey, what kind of content do we want to look for? We can say this site. We can point it to a specific document library or a specific page. We can look for pieces of information. We can even do a custom query if we know what we're, this gets a little more technical as to what we're looking for. But we can do different components to see what we're looking at. Maybe we don't want to do documents. Maybe we want to look for new videos that happen on this page. We can do this, and this is going to show us the history of any new videos that are added to the system. So you can see that this is very dynamic. This is always going to be updating and changing itself as new content becomes available on the platform. That's how a lot of these activity pages show up, is they're going to be constantly showing you the information that you're looking at. We also have different formats. We can do a carousel. So this is great if you've got some kind of a company shared. If I go back to documents here, if we have any like company shared photos, this would be a good way that you can actually build a carousel of photos. Just say, hey, I'm going to go look at this photo library, and this is where you can actually see all of that data that you're looking for. We can also just build it as a list. Now this shows us all of our recently modified documents. We can even change how we're sorting that. We can even say how many we want to do. We're only going to say, I only want to see the 3 latest. And if there's nothing that hasn't changed recently, I'm just going to hide it. So we can do a lot of really neat controls around this. One of the other things that I want to point out is this enable audience targeting. So this becomes really useful. If you attended our last session, we talked about sites and hub sites, where a hub site might have content that goes into multiple of the kind of the child sites. Premise of this would be a hub site for your company, and then you could have a section for HR, a section for finance, a section for all of those different areas. Those different subsections are all Teams sites. You might not have access to the HR section, so I don't want to show you access to the HR data. And how do we get around that? The way we get through that is by turning on audience targeting. If you don't have access to the data that you're seeing, it won't show up for you. So one of the advantages of this is being able to conglomerate data across multiple platforms, multiple areas of the system, multiple sites. And if you don't have access to that data, it's not going to show up for you. So it's going to be kind of hidden and out of the way. So yeah, that's kind of how we can build some of this dynamic data. One of the other ones to show is, I'm going to go in here and I'm going to just say how we can embed some of this stuff. So we can also embed forms. If you have attended some of our sessions in the past, you know about Microsoft Forms. It's a great way of actually doing, questions, stuff like that. Maybe we actually want to build a page that talks about showing the results from a particular form. So we can go in here and we can actually go pick out our form address. We can say show the results, and this will actually show us the result pages from those forms. Or we can create a new form and actually do collecting the responses. So we can actually build a little web part in here. A quick little question of answer these couple different things. Where should we go for our summer vacation this year? Just put that in there and you'd be able to find that information. So you can see how we can start adding a lot of these integrations so that this becomes kind of an additional hub to everything else that we're doing. So we've got forms, we've got Power Apps, we've got Visio add-ons, we have Planner add-ons, so we can do all sorts of things. We can do people searches, so we can add people profiles if you wanted to do information about various people inside your organization. You can change what kind of format you want. And then what happens is the person actually has the ability to modify their own profile. So you're kind of automatically granted rights to modify your profile if you're actually listed inside of here. So I could do I could add myself in here, and you can see that I show up as a person profile. I can say descriptive, and it'll tell me the additional data that might be hidden inside there. But it kind of adds that information that we might be looking for. So I'm gonna just kind of discard all my changes here. And I'm going to go back to my presentation. So hopefully through that demonstration, you kind of get an idea of where we're at or how to modify some of those pages. We kind of went through some SharePoint structures, how all that infrastructure works, kind of gets merged together. We went through how SharePoint pages are laid out, designed, how we can add components, how everything is really kind of controlled in that visual WYSIWYG kind of style, and that you don't need anything special or any special experience skills in order to gain access to that. We learned that there's a lot of different web parts that do a lot of the grunt work for us, right? They automatically query information, they automatically display that, they always try to make it look nice and neat for you. And then we also found out how to build the security around those structures. So I do want to open it up for questions and give people the opportunity to ask some things. We do want to kind of tell you about next month's session, September 10th, 1 o'clock, same time, same place. We've got, it will be up on mytech.com/events shortly. We are planning at this point in time to be talking about SharePoint lists and kind of giving you a primer about that and getting you ready for all the new features that are coming on that.
Awesome, yeah. We do have a couple questions here. So Joseph Dunn, I see you've raised your hand if you want to unmute yourself and ask your question.
Yeah, sure. And thanks for saying primer properly, by the way. No, so I know in the text box for the text box web part.
Yep.
and there's an image box web part, but what if I just want to put in like an inline image, like just a small image in the middle of a couple of paragraphs of text? I'm finding it hard to try to juggle an image box with a text box to get a smooth page, if you will.
Oh,
that combines both.
That's a good one. That's a good one. And I am probably going to struggle through this also, but I will try. Let's see what we can do. I do know that so if you are more familiar with page layout and some of the HTML stuff, there are ways to actually insert snippets into the platform, which might be the easy answer if I take the easy way out, I guess, in this discussion. But one of the things that, let me just get rid of this section. We're going to add a new one here. So ultimately, what you're saying is I want to build a layout on this, and you're adding a text box with some text here. Let me just grab some text quick. I have a page here with some text. So maybe I want to add this here. So maybe I want to talk about adding the weather web part to this page. And I want an image here to show how to do this. Is that what you're trying to?
Right, like say, go to the page where you want to add it and then click edit at the top right of the page, but say you just want a little tiny screenshot of the edit button, right? To sort of help people.
Okay.
But you were saying, so you can embed code, right? So one of the tricks I learned from someone else, right? So are there wiki sites? Are there like blog sites in this?
Yeah.
So you can make a page. I know it's a crude one, but it works. So if you make a page like that, like you put the text and the images into a Word document, publish it as a blog, get the source out of that, and then you can embed the source into a box here.
Yep. So there is I think the one that you're looking for is this Markdown section, and the Markdown section is going to be very similar to your wiki page formatting. So this is going to handle the typical Markdown structures that you're probably talking about.
Yeah, I put in like, yes, I didn't even see. I didn't know that this was here. There's so many web parts.
There's so many web parts. There's like, this is the funny part is this is exactly what it is. I love this for I love the Markdown section for doing block code. So if you like being a technical organization like we do, we regularly have PowerShell code or something like that, and so we'll set it into a dark theme, and then I can use the block quote format, which will do monospaced code language, and it formats it out. And somebody who's looking at a document looks like PowerShell code, right? It's nice and clean. It's got numbering sequences. It's got everything that we would need. So definitely kind of a cool way to do that. But yeah, that Markdown feature is probably what's going to handle that really well for you.
Because there's the links and images that you can put in. Okay. Yes, that is exactly what I am looking for. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. I believe that you can actually insert images into the text block also. They just have to be inside of the area. So maybe not.
Can you try copying an image and clicking into the text space to try and paste it?
You can't do that.
Not that.
Because I tried to do that. Actually, it says you probably could. I tried to paste it from another web page, and I don't think it liked that. But if it was a Word document, I might be able to bring that in straight in. So they do automatically interpret some of those document components. So that might be an option for you also.
Awesome. All right, we got another raised hand here. So Flynn.
Hi, yeah. I was just wondering what ability there is to do kind of automation. So off the top of my head, would there be any way that an activity in a different part of Office, so like let's say you create a task, would there be a way to automate it so that it created like a countdown timer on a SharePoint page or something for that task? That's just an example, but just generally like the integration and automation parts of it.
I believe that there might be ways to do that. what you're probably going to be looking at for that is going to be more tied around the Power Automate type actions. So Power Automate will give you the ability to say, if this happens on this platform, take these actions on that platform. I don't know that there's a way to, like for that example, to actually say that this has happened here, now create this. You have so long before this is going to happen, or before this is due. I don't know of a way to do that offhand. I can't guarantee that it's not possible. It's not a default feature within the platform. I'll say that much. Probably requires some integration of a couple of different components of Microsoft to make that happen.
Okay. Thanks.
Yep.
All right, and I'm not seeing any other raised hands. Is there anybody else that has a question? You can go raise your hand, unmute yourself, or post it right into the chat if you've got a question or something else you want to see Gerald demonstrate.
While we're waiting for people to think of some other questions, I'll just go through a couple other web parts in here because there's some pretty neat ones, and just kind of give you some ideas. So we do have all sorts of things. So we can build just single images in. We can build links. This is also a great way of doing. Trying to find it here. Link. This is not the one I wanted. So many, can't remember. Quick links. So quick links are a great way of being able to do links that you might want in a page. So you can actually add all sorts of different things. So you can build a grid of links if you want to, little tiles. So we could actually build in, like maybe this is our intranet site and we actually have a bunch of common sites that we try to access or have people access on a regular basis, HR, payroll sites, maybe our primary ERP or CRM type application, those kinds of actions. We can build all of those links, publish them all out, and then they'll actually get laid out just like this one is here. I can take this one and I can say, you know what, I don't like this vertical list because I've got 30 or 40 of these that I really want in here. I can go in here and modify this one. And in this one, I just want these to be little tiles. And I can actually make these small tiles and they'll just keep adding, little objects as I need to. So you can really do some really kind of neat things, even if we customize all of these links. So if I go in and modify one of these, I can actually change what icon I want. There's a whole bunch of built-in icons in here. Maybe I want to say that this is all about our health system. I can add the heart in here, add this in. When I change this, back to this, edit this page here, I can say only show icons. So I only get that. I don't have any text associated with it, anything else. So you get a lot of flexibility that you can do pretty easily with the quick links. Show you another one here. I know we've talked about in previous sessions about storing metrics, some of that kind of stuff. This is another way of doing this. This is a very easy metric type platform. All of this data is located strictly inside the object. So it's not a perfect methodology of actually storing this information, but it does give you a way of being able to say, maybe you're publishing quarterly numbers. You want to publish that out to everybody inside your company. Hey, this is where we're at. You can actually do this by just kind of putting in some data that you want. You can also pull this from lists on the system. So if there's a particular list or values that are coming out of that, you can actually pull that information out of here also. But in this scenario, I can just say, I can enter a data label. So, we can put our goal in here and I can say our goal is at 100 and we automatically can add this. We can add additional layers. So we can say, we can add additional graphs or pie chart components. Right, and we can see exactly where that is. Somebody can go in here that has edit permissions, can go in and update this information, say exactly where we're at, and save this information, publish this out at any point in time. So we can do some kind of neat things with that.
All right, Gerald, I have a question. I might stump you. Yep. We'll see. Is there any search capability in any of these web parts? It's like providing a search bar to look through documents. Or for instance, I'm thinking from a marketing standpoint, if I have a bunch of recent blogs and I want someone to be able to search through it.
Yeah, I don't know that there's actually a web part for search. The big thing about SharePoint is the search is integrated into everything that you're doing. So it's all about the site level search. So what might be the fit for you though is if we're talking about blogs in this scenario, what we could do is we could maybe say, I want to look at highlighted content. If there's information that you're regularly looking at, we can say, maybe we want to look for these types of pages, right? And by doing this, we can see only exactly what pages we're looking at. We can do it even across a couple of different content types. So we can say pages and videos. We can add both of those content types and it'll combine them together for us. We can then do filters, and maybe that's exactly what we do is we actually look for some of that metadata that we're tagging, and we can actually look for exactly what we're looking at, and then sorting that by the most recent. That might give you the ability to see views of that information, because we could also say trending. So these are things that are regularly getting hit or accessed by different components.
Okay, awesome. I am not seeing any other questions, so I think we're probably good to close for today's, but everybody will receive a follow-up email later this afternoon, like Gerald was saying, with a link to next month's session, so you can register for that, as well as a survey. I've also posted the link to that survey in the chat right now if you want to take that. Highly encourage everybody to fill that out. It just helps us learn what content you guys are looking for so that we can tailor these sessions. We try and do it in a way that they make sense to do one after another, but definitely your input helps us tailor them over the coming months of things that you want to learn. So any last words, Gerald, before we close out?
I appreciate everybody coming, and hopefully this allows you to start making some use out of SharePoint.
Awesome. Well, thanks everybody for your time, and we'll see you guys next month.
Thank you very much.
Yep, bye.